Welcome back to the DTF Printing Mastery class. I'm your host Jay with Elegant Edits. Today we will actually be using the automated vector creation software, and we'll launch it here. And this is for the back side of the shirt that we just did, the front, with the live trace feature within Illustrator. So this image, let me see here. Yes, we need this overstimulated image for the backside here. Now, this software, it's going to try to trace these edges for us and create a pretty close vector file. And this image is pretty much at scale, but we may need to alter these colors just a little bit. But instead of tracing it, and making it painstakingly, the process painstakingly slow. We also want to, not to, that we compromise the quality for speed, but if we can utilize any sort of tools that'll help us with time, I am also always open to using those tools as well. And so this is one of those tools, so it's going to do its best to trace these edges for us. And there's a desktop version of this in case you don't want to use the browser version. It costs a little bit more, but the link will be provided below. So it's done a pretty good job here. So we can just download the result. And again, we have these three file format options, which I already explained that these are the most popular vector file options here. So we're going to save this into this folder here. And it already has it here within Illustrator. And we will actually need to remove the white from the back of this image, but to ensure, I can go ahead and close this out, to ensure that we are staying close to the source file, I'll actually move this over so we can use this as a frame of reference. I think we'll end up having to remove and subtract some of the white from this image. I'm pretty certain of it. So firstly, I want to create a layer and drag it. So we'll create a new layer. Then we'll click and drag it underneath. And then we will select our rectangle tool and make sure that there's no stroke around that. And we want to select the fill as, I'll just say black. And then we will draw a rectangle, click and drag from corner to corner. We can't see it right now because there's a white layer there. So let's go ahead and select this blank space here to lock this layer. And now we can hit A on the keyboard, which is a shortcut for our direct selection tool. Now let's go ahead and set this apart as well. So we'll select this image, Control X, create a new layer, select the layer, radial button here, Control F to paste in front, and then we'll lock this. That way we won't manipulate this image at all. So now we'll select this corner, click and drag, and press delete twice. Now you can see that these areas in the design should be void areas of the design, but we have white. So even though we're using this, nothing in this industry is going to be turnkey, plug and play. We have to utilize the skills that we've learned along the way in order to get the desired result. So if I take this and move this around, we don't have the void area within the O. So I'll just hit Control Z to undo what we just did. See, Control Z to undo that clear. And so we're going to select the center of this object, hold Alt and Shift on the keyboard, and select the object behind, and then we will use our Pathfinder tool. If you don't have this open, ensure that you're using the Essentials setup. And again, if you're using Adobe Illustrator 2023, I do have that version as well, but I'm using an older version so that my computer doesn't crash, because this is using a lot of RAM or memory, random access memory. So we'll actually have to upgrade our computer here, but that's beside the point. Just please bear with me. Some of these features will look a little bit different if you're using a newer version of Illustrator. But if you don't see this Pathfinder tool, just go to Window and select the Pathfinder option and make sure that's checked, and you'll see this window pop up. So while this is selected, and again, if you accidentally deselect it, I'll do the same. You'll click in the center of the object, hold Alt and Shift on the keyboard, and then we want to do the minus front option, which will subtract that shape from this, creating the void area that you see here. So if we were to move this selection over, it looks pretty similar to this because we want the shirt to show through the void area of the O. So we're going to do the same thing here. Want to come over here and select this object, hold Alt and Shift, minus. Select the object, hold Alt and Shift, minus front. Do these in succession. Now, sometimes if you don't want to do these separately, you could select the object, hold Alt and Shift on the second object, use the Unite Pathfinder tool to basically merge these two white shapes, and then you can go and follow that up with holding Alt and Shift on the keyboard, selecting the back object and hitting minus front, and it will actually subtract both shapes from this. Now, what would happen if we didn't select them both? Let's see. You would select this and then hold Alt and Shift and subtract it. Sometimes this selection will end up behind, and if that happens, all you would need to do is you would hold Control, or you would press Control X, and that is the keyboard for command for cut, Control X, and then you would hit Control B, which is paste them back, and we would paste it in the back. Deselect, select again, hold Alt and Shift, and we would just minus the front. So what we did initially was to do it a lot faster, because it's with the mindset of printing. When a customer sends you an image and you need to convert it, you don't necessarily, again, you don't want to compromise quality for the speed, but we still need to do this as quickly as possible. So the more repetition we have, the more likely you can do this a little bit faster without compromising that quality. So for this shape, all we need to do is press our direct selection tool or hit A on the keyboard, hold Alt and Shift, select the object in the back, and minus front. Now we have a vector file. So when I go to when I go to View, Outline, you'll see a box on this side, which represents a raster image, and you'll see a clean vector file that we spoke about in that first module of the mastery class. So all that's left to do is to remove. We can hide this layer, but we can hide the black layer, and then we can go to File and Export. And remember, we want a PNG file. If you export this as a JPEG file, it will actually export with a white background. So for the transparency, to maintain that transparency for the background, we want to select a PNG, and I don't want to use artboards because I want it to clip it to the outermost edges of the actual design instead of the square background of our artboard here. And that will help with scaling these 11-inch wide. And that's why I keep these files saved in the right folder according to the specifications of the customer. So we are going to save this as a transparent PNG. And actually, I don't want to overwrite her file because I may need to compare it. So we'll go open a new folder, and we'll just name this folder Fixed. And this is where our ready to print images will be saved. Make sure we export this at 300 ppi, or pixels per inch, which is the standard for printed media, if this were what we were going to do. Now, I will go back and resave this according to my color chart to try to match these neon-esque colors, or at least the pink is neon-esque for the color output. But if you have an ICC profile, this will be ready to go, and this image is cleaned up here. Now, if you'd like to see the difference between a vector and a raster image, the same image, what I'll do is I'll unlock this layer, drag it over. This may not be exact. I'll get as close as I can. It's pretty close here. I'll do my due diligence here to try to get this as exact as possible. Okay, it's close enough. So again, this was pretty much print ready, but raster image, vector, raster, vector. Okay, so this file is ready to go. Thank you for being a part of the DTF Printing Mastery class. Again, my name is Jay with Elegant Edits, and we'll see you in the next one.